All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Form Check Friday. We take your videos that you email to us. If you're interested in submitting, description below, we got some links there. Send stuff in, give us context. Anyways, we take your videos, we put them up on the screen, we critique them. I'm a powerlifting coach, been doing it for a long, long time, and I like to think that we help some people. So we're gonna do that now. What do we got going on first here, Del?
This first submission is Alexander.
Okay.
This is a 107 kilo squat for 7 reps. He says powerlifting for 8 months and has a goal squat of 160 kilos.
Okay.
That's all we got for that one.
All right.
And the angle does change on this one.
Like the camera person walks around a bit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because this side angle is kind of...
Side angle's good, but you gotta we gotta be able to see more of your body.
Yeah.
Right? If the plate's covering your whole body, it makes it really tough. Okay. So, a couple things right off the hop. Number one, if you're in a rack, never mind. I was gonna say, if you're in a rack like this, oftentimes there are ways to put the bar on this side, and then you can face out and not look into the mirror. However, I don't think this lifter is really looking into the mirror anyways. You can see he is, where's that shot? There. So you can see he's looking like way up. Now this is actually one of the things that would be one of the first things I would fix. I would stop looking up, stop trying to be so upright, stop arching your back so much. It looks like you're doing really everything in your power to try to be super chest up and driving your chest up out of the bottom. We're really overextended. Now, some lifters can get away with this, but already we can see here in the bottom, boop, you see how we're starting to see the hips come up behind you? We're starting to see the bar pull you forwards out of the bottom. We're starting to lose the brace. And those kinds of things go hand in hand with being really overextended like that. I also think that as the set wears on, we might be getting a little more iffy on depth. Again, often a symptom of being really overextended like that. So what I would do is, we say this a lot, we talk about this a lot, bracing is a big thing, it's really important. Pull those ribs down, try to learn to hinge, and take this like nice neutral torso angle you've got here, and instead of changing the orientation of your back, you're just gonna shift, right? You're gonna break at the hips and push your butt back without this. So what's gonna happen is you're gonna take this torso angle, you're gonna tilt, and then you're gonna squat straight down. That way, you're able to maintain the same brace throughout the whole movement. One of the reasons we're falling forward in the bottom is because we're trying to maintain this really extended brace position. And as soon as you start to get to the bottom, you have to kind of level out to get good depth. When you have a bunch of weight on your back and you go from really extended to here, at the bottom of your squat, when you're at your worst leverages, that's when you're gonna start noticing a lot of issues with knees coming back, hips coming up, all that kind of squat morning patterning. So stop extending the head, stop looking up. I would rather have you look like here so that you can keep your chin packed in and tilt your torso like this instead of trying to stay super upright. Beyond that, let's see, I may play around with your stance a little bit, although it looks pretty comfortable there. Stance might not be a big issue. Let's see how it plays out once you get the bracing settled. The other thing, and we just made a short about this on Instagram, is packing your grip really, really close like that can feel like it's creating really good tightness, but in a lot of cases, and you can see again here, that bar's moving around on your back, it's pulling you forward. We could maybe be tighter by moving the grip out a little bit. Not only that, but it may be more comfortable on your elbows and wrists and that kind of thing. When we're packed in super tight like that, it's gonna feel tight, but a lot of times we're not actually able to be active in the brace when we're that close. So by moving slightly outwards in your grip, you might be able to actually pull that bar into your back better, get your lats a little more engaged, and get a lot of the sort of muscles that are gonna be right under the bar in this sort of shelf, you're gonna be able to get those a lot tighter. So that's my recommendation. I hope that helps you, Alexander.
Next up, we have a bench press from Ali.
All right, Ali.
This is 140 kilos, looking to hit 4 plates by the end of the year.
Okay. So, right out of the rack, here's the thing. If you're gonna compete ever, you can't go to like a half rep and then set there, right? Like your elbows are bent here. If you're not competing, this may be less of an issue, but I still think it's worth addressing. You know, you're coming out of the rack and you're starting your press from like halfway down. Keep those elbows locked, find a good shoulder position, and then learn to break at the elbows to start the descent, right? As opposed to being already bent in the elbows. Now, you have a great bench press other than that, right? You definitely, I think one of the things that I think leads to this is, you know, you're really positioning your upper back aggressively. And a lot of the times, if we get a lot of that external rotation, we think about the upper back a lot. You can see my elbows kind of naturally bend without even me thinking about the elbows. So number one, think about the elbows. Keep them straight, set your back, keep them straight, and then descend. Upper back positioning and everything looks great. The other thing is though, right, we're very much touch and going. And it's hard to say with sweats on, but you know, we might be floating a little there on the press. Hard to say. You might still be in contact, but there's a big difference between where your butt is here and where your butt is in the height of the press. So maybe a good side angle would be a good thing to like look at, right? And just make sure on your heavier reps, you're keeping your butt down. But the biggest thing is the elbows and practice some pauses. You know, I say this a lot, but if you want to get good at producing power from this position, spend some time there. Spend some time there under load. Train that position. That's going to do you a world of good. Now, do you have to pause a bench rep for it to be, you know, real? Absolutely not. No. If you have no plans to compete, a touch and go rep is still a bench PR. But you can use pauses in your bench press to really do a good job of strengthening the bench. It's a great accessory, right? Everybody loves pause squats, pause deadlifts, all that kind of stuff, even if you're just trying to build the general strength of your lift. So I recommend we use the same thing on the bench, even if you don't care about pausing for competition's sake.
Next up, I do not know how to say this name. It's
Siguror?
Siguror?
That's all I would say, Siguror.
170 kilos for 3. He's 19 years old from Iceland.
Okay. Shout outs Iceland. I got a client there.
Started the 16-week program about 5 weeks ago.
Okay.
And he says, I know my back is quite rounded, but if I try to keep it straight, I feel my lower back. I've been watching your videos and have heard the cue push from your legs and don't look up. But as soon as the set gets hard or above RPE 6, I forget it and feels like I look up and pull up instead of pushing down and keeping my head neutral. And this happens also in the squat.
Okay. Well, I mean, you're 19, right? So you're probably relatively new to lifting, right? This is maybe one of your first like powerlifting programs. So don't get discouraged if you're struggling to hold on to a cue when it gets heavy. The biggest thing that's gonna teach you how to do that is just what's called exposure therapy. And basically that means just doing it. So like there's no secret to, you know, doing these things better, doing these cues better. It's more about, you know, making sure that you have them down when you're working with light weights, and then making sure that the progression to heavier weights is gradual enough that you can hang on to some of that technique and some of those technical cues. Now, yeah, looking at this lift, I don't think our start position is all that bad. I think we're really loose in the shoulders. I think we could definitely get more lat tightness, and that's going to help you just tighten up the upper back. You know, I think your lower back isn't in a terrible position at all. We're a little inconsistent with how we're starting the reps, and we're also not really locking all the way out. So working on trying to find good tightness. And so like here, let's go. That's hip. There's front of shoulder. So that's rep 1. Now, I think the camera's moving a little bit too, so that might kind of confound my technique here, but yeah, never mind. It's not really gonna work that way. So yeah, I think that especially on the second rep, you can see there's a big disconnect between the hips and the shoulders, right? So we're not creating enough of a brace and enough tightness here. You can see as you start the hips start moving, and then the shoulders take a second to kind of catch up. So we need to work on trying to find that connection between the upper back and the hips driving the movement. So I think that, you know, I'm not sure if you're trying to cue yourself to pull the shoulders back, but if so, don't. And think more about pulling the shoulders down. Like, try to find this lat tightness, right? These lats should really help you connect here down into your pelvis, right? This sort of scapular depression is going to shorten the lever here and make this segment of your body have to do a little bit less work. The other thing is, if we're having trouble getting the hips down or feeling like we're good with the hips down, a lot of times hips down seems to be synonymous with hips forward, right? People sit down and they just sit down and forward more. What I would say is, in order to keep some back tension and posterior chain tension, is if you're gonna think about sitting down more, think about sitting down and back more, right? We wanna keep all of this good tension here. And if we sit down and forward, we're gonna lose all that, and we're just gonna go straight into quads and try to squat it up. We're gonna turn into, you know, a question mark. So hips down and back, if we can get them down any further, focus on that lat tension and just continue doing work in those sort of moderate intensity ranges until it becomes more comfortable to use the cues that are allowing you to be successful. Lastly, we need more lockout, right? We need to get more hip extension. You need to push the hips through and get just a few degrees more upright. I think right now we're still kind of hanging forward. Some reps are a little better than others. I think this first rep, we're especially short. Second rep's iffy. Third rep, I think we get closest on the third rep there. But overall, we definitely need more lockout. Don't underestimate the value of, especially with an accessory movement like this, doing it like kind of light. The other thing I would say is maybe take your belt out of the equation on some of these accessories to help you feel out bracing a little bit better. Looks like your belt's quite tight. A lot of times a tight belt, especially on the deadlift, can be a bit restrictive, can disrupt your ability to feel what you're doing, and can kind of mess with your ability to brace. So either loosening or removing the belt, even just on some accessories, might help you feel that out as well.
Our last submission comes from Ashley. This is a 225 for 3.
And we're not just leaving this one for the comments section.
Deadlift.
We're on the no form check left behind now.
And I'll read her email because there's quite a bit in it. So I've been powerlifting training for around 6 years now, but I've only been able to deadlift consistently for 8 weeks since a back injury in June, and then some thoracic outlet syndrome issues in my right neck shoulder. Okay. Which is like, I guess like impingement or like it has to do with your clavicle and your
the nerves that
vessels and
there,
nerves, yeah, being like trapped. Let's see. So I'm still trying to find my groove and best technique. I mostly struggle with trying to position my shoulders, scapula, and lats in an effective way that also doesn't trigger my TOS symptoms, hence the obvious issues of the bar rolling forward at the start of the rep. Getting all the tension and tightness at the start is so difficult. I've also found that wearing a belt causes some pain, so I haven't used one probably since my May, actually.
Okay. All right. So first things first. Again, I think we're locking out pretty short. I definitely think we need more lockout. But I think one of the reasons we're finding that the shoulders are rolling forward is because we're in this really extended position. And you'll hear me harp on about a lot of the same stuff, honestly. But this extended position is kind of putting your shoulders in like an artificially retracted position. And then when we start, if I can, nope, can I scrub? There we go. And then when we start, you can see the shoulders have to roll forward and kind of your whole body pivots forward, right? So I also think that you can watch the toe right here, right? We're super far back when we try to start pulling, and then you'll notice we rock forward to the point where we have a little bit more toe pressure. So a couple things. Number one, more ribs down. You'd be surprised when you pull the front of your rib cage down, it's gonna make it easier to pull the back of your rib cage down. Right now, I think we're thinking about the brace just here. We're not thinking about this band of muscle in here, right? Abs, obliques, that kind of stuff. So I want you to really think about pulling ribs down in front. It looks like, now I can't see your face, but it looks like we're also really kind of reaching the head up and back. I think again, bringing the chin down so the neck is in line with the back and kind of packing the chin back is gonna help you get a bit better upper back position. Almost like letting the arms the shoulders come forward slightly more. It looks like you're kind of focusing on pulling them back as part of this extension. I would say think about shoulder blades into your front pockets, right? So it's gonna be slightly more protracted and forward and much more depressed. Now, some of these cues may or may not be possible depending on how your, sort of thoracic outlet stuff goes and how it feels and all that kind of stuff. But it's certainly gonna allow you a lot more consistency off the floor. The other thing I think that you're having trouble getting tight off the floor is because you're trying to keep too much of yourself behind the bar. You're too far back on your heels. And every rep before that bar starts, we're seeing this shift forward, right? Next rep, we sit way back, you can see there, and then shift forward. So the shifting forward isn't a problem. It's not something you're doing wrong. The shifting forward is because your body needs to be a little more over the bar for you to pull it off the floor. So I would recommend starting with more of a sort of like mid-foot pressure, a little more toe pressure, and try not to be quite so far back on the heels. So ribs down more, shoulder blades front pockets, as opposed to pulling them back and down so much. And let's try to get just a slight bit, it's a pivot, right? I'm not trying to get you to like bring your hips up or anything. I want you to just pivot on your ankles forward so you're a little bit more over the bar, and I bet you'll feel a lot more powerful right off the floor. And that's what we have for you today. Hopefully y'all enjoyed. Again, if you want to submit, links are below. Make sure to check out the Calgary Barbell training app, and we'll see you next week for our next Form Check Friday.
Bye.